Hey y'all, I'm Jenny Williams with Get a Real Estate Life Coaching Program, and welcome to 60 Minutes to Six Figures, where every second Monday we get together for some free online training. And today's topic is going to be really good. And I wish every real estate agent could watch this across the country because you'll get to hear today what sellers really want. Instead of us just guessing, we get to hear some real feedback, not only from a survey that we've got, but also you get to hear from two very experienced home sellers. Before we get started, I want to, of course, welcome our friend Matt Johnson.
Hey everybody, just wanted to thank you so much for being with us today, and a couple quick things. So while we wait for some people to join us and watch behind the scenes live here, basically on Google Plus you can watch us live and you can interact with questions. So I wanted to let you know how that you can do that. Number one, if you're on the Google Plus page here right below this video, you can type your question in as a comment. I'll keep my eye on that. And then if you notice, when you click the play button on the video, there's a little Q&A app on the top right hand side. You can actually click that and you can punch your question in there too, and that'll get it to me as well, and I'll be sure to bring the questions to Jenny and our special guests. And then if you're watching the replay of this on YouTube or on Jenny's site, make sure to subscribe on YouTube so you get all of her future videos, not just these once a month 60 minutes to six figures, but also the other videos that Jenny puts out throughout the month. So make sure to subscribe here on YouTube.
Thanks, Matt. Matt always does a great job, so if you have questions, definitely send them, and he'll ask them and make sure that you get answers that you need while we're in this discussion today. So we are not going to be using any names of any agents because that's not the point. We are here today to provide you information to make you a listing agent much better in what you do so that you are providing real value to consumers. Because without consumers, we don't have a reason to be in this industry. And home sellers are what actually feed us, and we want to make sure that they are getting what they really want from us. Otherwise, they're going to all be listing their houses themselves. So that's not what we want. We want to make sure that you as a listing agent provide real value to home sellers. And you know, as a real estate coach, more and more sellers are feeling the need to reach out to me and confide to me some of their stories about and their frustrations in dealing with listing agents. And I'm going to share some of that with you today. And yeah, we're going to laugh and we're going to think some of them are funny and some of them are crazy. But a couple of things are going to surprise you today as well. So before we get started into our deep discussion, I want to thank our guests for joining us and introduce to you first Kevin Gann. Kevin, hi.
Hey, Jenny. Thanks for having me.
No, I'm so excited to have you here. Just so our guests will know, Kevin is highly experienced in hiring and even firing some high-profile agents. So his perspective, I think, will give you a lot of understanding. And thank you for being here today and sharing your experiences through real estate with us.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, and I know everybody has been waiting to meet my husband, so he's super excited about being here. I dragged him onto this 60 Minutes to Six Figures because he sold hundreds and hundreds of new homes as a home builder, as an investor, as a house flipper, and he has had what, Jay, probably dozens of listing agents that you've worked with through the years, right?
At least dozens, yes.
So he definitely has an opinion about services provided by a listing agent, and we are going to get into that mind of his and find out, you know, maybe some service techniques that will help you become a better listing agent. So, you know, first of all, I shared in the Facebook post a story that I got back from one of our sellers on the seller survey that his listing agent actually moved into his house behind his back without him knowing it. And we can laugh at those kind of things, but there are people out there that are actually doing stuff like this. And, you know, we want to make sure that our industry is professional and ethical. And When he first told us the story, he was living in a different state and flipping property. And, that's how he makes a living. It's how he's made a living for many years. And moved to a different state, so he wasn't nearby to check on the property. And he wanted to know why he wasn't getting much activity. So he flew in for a surprise visit and found spaghetti cooking on the stovetop, all the clothes in the house, and his listing agent had moved into the property. Unfortunately, he didn't really get much recourse on that. And I think that's a bit extreme. I don't think that most home sellers are going to have a situation like that, but we've got our own frustrations. I knew, Matt, you would love that story. And,
I get a kick out of that, yeah.
And but okay, so before we reveal like our survey questions and answers that I'm pretty excited about, I want to start with a couple of questions. And Matt, can I first start with you, because your perspective in working with high producing agents across the country, what are you hearing home sellers want most from their listing agents?
Well, what seems to work in terms of the top agents going in and actually being able to get a listing are their ability to articulate their communication plan, having some sort of a system in place for the way that they communicate with the sellers. I mean, if you ask anyone from home sellers to even just your run-of-the-mill client of an investment advisor or a financial advisor, what their biggest problem is and why they fire their agent or why they fire their financial advisor or whatever the case is. Anyone that's in professional services, it usually has to do with your style and the amount of communication or some type of promise that's not been fulfilled, and usually has to do with the way that that's been communicated, whether it's expressed or implied. So that's the main thing. So, for example, my podcast co-host Greg McDaniel out in the East Bay. So when they come in and take a new listing, that's right, I love Greg. So when they come in and take a new listing, they have kind of a system. He has a transaction coordinator who's their office manager who handles all the communication with clients through most of the process. But they actually ask them, okay, what is your preferred method of communication? How would you like us to get a hold of you? How often do you want updates on this sort of information? And then they schedule it out. So they know going in, the client knows going in exactly how they're going to be communicated with. So that's number one, is the communication. Number two is just the kind of knowing what separates you from the other agent down the street, whether it's a top agent, if you're in that echelon, or if you're going up against just your run-of-the-mill, neighborhood expert, is the ability to sit down with the homeowner and be able to articulate and look them in the eye and say, here's why I'm different and or better. Here's my marketing plan. Here's what I'm going to do, and be able to lay out specifics. So one of the top agents here in San Diego, which is one of the most competitive markets in the country for real estate agents, he has what's called a 5-day blitz. So he's able to go into, whether it's an expired listing or just a regular listing, he's able to say, look, I'm going to do this. We're going to make 300 phone calls to neighbors. We're going to be out there door knocking for X number of days leading up to the property going on the market on a Saturday, and then we're going to close it for offers on Sunday night. So he has a whole basically a marketing program laid out that's called the 5-day blitz, because it's packed into going prepping it, and Wednesday through Sunday, essentially getting as much traffic into a very compressed time frame, which that's all, you can change the approach, but the essentials is he's able to basically articulate in a very clear way why he's different from every other agent in San Diego, and it's very, very effective for him. So the more that you can do that, the more that you can lay out specifically what you're going to do differently, and especially if it's in terms of marketing, the better you are in a listing presentation.
I do have one of my clients, what he does such a great job articulating his value, and he'll say that I'm going to actually cost you more than any other agent that you're going to interview. Because
it's funny you said that. I interviewed a guy on Friday that said the exact same thing. Michael Lafito, yeah.
Well, that is not who I'm talking about. But and he owns his market. He owns it. But he says that right up front, because this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm investing, this is how I'm going to do it, and we're going to have you closed in no time. Now, it's not 5 days.
Right. Yeah. It helps to be in an extreme seller's market.
Right.
Yeah.
But those were some really, really good tips. But Kevin, having sold commercial property, residential property, throughout the years, you've dealt with a lot of different agents. And, what's the one thing that you've wanted or expected most from your listing agents?
Yeah, I think the one thing, it's kind of a combination, is to be honest and communicate with me. I know it sounds simple, but I've had so many agents where I have to pick up the phone as the property owner that's selling the property and call the agent and ask them, hey, how did the showings go? Or what do you think? And I don't want to just hear the good news. I also want to hear, the bad news as well, just the honest feedback, because in some cases I might can do something about the negative feedback that we might be hearing. But I think just being honest is first, and second is communicating. There just seems to be a big lack of that, and it's such a simple thing to do.
Well, I do think that agents have a bad reputation of disappearing in the middle of a transaction or in the middle of their process. So what's funny, though, on the survey is that we had 90% of the home sellers who took the survey said that they were happy with their communication, which blows me away because it is always the #1 complaint that I hear. Now, Jay, piggybacking on that, what is the one thing that you've always expected from your listing agent?
I want them to know the market. I want them to know the neighborhood we're selling in, what to expect, what houses are selling for, days on market. If I'm expecting an offer in a week and really, everything else is getting an offer in a month, tell me that up front so nobody's upset. I want to know if they're going to pass me off to one of their assistants. Who's my point of contact? And, how often will I hear from them?
Now, what Kevin said about feedback, good and bad, that's something that you talk about all the time.
Yeah, I prefer probably the bad feedback because I can change that. The good stuff is good already. If there's one thing that's turning everybody off, I want to change it before I'm a month or 2 months down the road.
Now, I'm curious, Jay. I mean, from a builder's perspective, do you, since you've been on both sides in the sense where you're working for a company that's building the homes, and there's probably some disconnect there where you're not taking some of the negative feedback personally, but I'm sure you've also built and remodeled homes where maybe you had a hand in the design. You might take some of the feedback personally. I mean, you've been on both sides of it. Do you think that makes a difference in terms of the agent relaying that negative feedback to you?
For me, it's just business. It doesn't bother me at all. I could see where if it was a homeowner and that's their home, they've made it the way they want it, that could offend them. But for me, I want the negative stuff. I want to change the paint colors. I want to do whatever's turning them off. I want to change it.
Well, and for instance, Matt, years ago we had a house that it was built with a historic plan, and it had an open-air carport. And with a breezeway, and it just matched that style of the house. And people were not responding well to the carport. And easy fix. We can make it into a garage. So, but what was funny is that I was having to call people down, track them down, ask them. I mean, we could have easily done it. Now, somebody ended up buying it who loved the carport, but that was feedback that we kept receiving. So I know that was important to both of y'all. When I heard Kevin say it, I'm like, Jay, that's your buzzword right there. So I don't want to always dwell on the negatives. I want to make sure that we recognize agents for doing things right, because I am in the trenches with these people 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and I know how hard they work. So, Kevin, can you share some really good experiences that you've had with listing agents?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've worked with some of the best in the markets that I'm in, and and had a lot of success with them too. And it kind of piggybacks off one thing that Jay was saying is, knowing the market and pricing the property correctly goes a long way. I've had some of the absolute best who I think they're the experts in their market, but they know the homes, and they know the square foot, the price per square foot. that's always a big thing for me, is what are things selling for per square foot, and give me the range, give me the high end, give me the middle, and then give me the low. So that way, if I'm doing a flip or if I'm doing a spec home straight out of the ground, I know what level that I can build to, and feel comfortable that it can sell. Same way with buying a home. You know, I've always been told if you're going to flip, you know, you make your money partly on the buying it correctly. And so knowing the price per square foot, and I rely heavily on the agents for that information right there. And if they can't tell me that, then that's a little bit of a red flag for me. But the good ones really do their homework and they know their math, and it's such a help, and it gives someone like me a lot of confidence when buying properties in that area, remodeling them, or just selling. So I've had some great experiences, great guidance with that, and they also know what drives the price per square foot up. You know, they can advise, hey, this is what people are looking for. I had a realtor the other day tell me, you know, they need 2 living areas on the main level and a screen porch. That's the hot buttons right now for this particular area. And that was tremendously helpful. We talked to the architect about it, and we put a great plan together. It was a great collaboration to present, you know, to do the right thing, to have the biggest chance of success in that market for the project we're doing. And the real estate agent plays a big role in that. So knowing the markets, knowing the price per square foot, and what drives the price per square foot up, but also what takes away from it. That's what really helps me, and that's what I really rely on a good agent for, is that right there. And they usually have a pipeline of folks, and they know what they're looking for as well. So, you know, they can advise on things like that. So that's very helpful, and a plan as well, a marketing plan. Other than just, hey, I'm going to put a sign in your yard, you know, a great marketing plan is also something that I've experienced with really good agents that are tops in their markets. They'll show me, hey, here are the 10 things that we're going to do. And I go in after we sign up with them and double check it, and they're actually being done. And when they're being done, you know it because you're getting the showings from it as well.
So with that being said, have you had a lot of people actually provide a presentation?
The good ones, yes. The ones that, you know, that I've been told, hey, these are the successful people in this area, in this market. You can always tell. They always have a great plan. They come in, you know, we talk about price per square foot, because that's usually what's important to me. And then we talk about the marketing plan. So they do have a plan, and they do present it, yes.
Okay, what's funny is that most of our sellers in our survey, just as we're revealing piece by piece here, most agents did not have a presentation. And Jay, didn't you say this, that you don't know that you've ever had an agent provide you a presentation?
Only presentation I've ever had done was for new construction for subdivisions, but nothing on a resale flip, nothing other than, hey, we're going to put it in MLS, run a couple of ads, and here's your sign. That's about it.
So that's a great way to stand out, agents. If you want to make sure that you come across as a professional, you show up highly prepared. And I have had 2 of our top agent clients compete against each other for a listing one time. And, you know, part of our service is providing listing presentations. We customize them for you so that you can stand out. And one of my clients won out over the other. And the other one was smart and called and said, you know, why did I not get this business? I sold you the house previously. And the seller said, well, the other agent came highly prepared. She had a presentation. She showed me all the comps. She went and previewed all the other houses that were on the market. She took pictures of them. She showed me what was available and how mine compared to them. You kind of just showed up with nothing. So I think, what Kevin is talking about, having that plan, having that presentation, and how Jay is saying that of all the dozens of listing agents that he's worked with throughout the years, of course, me being, put over here, put aside, he hasn't, seen any presentation on what somebody's going to do. So it's very important that you have a presentation, because that's your job, knowing what to say and kind of, that presentation leading you through that. Nothing boring, but having your numbers up front, like Kevin said, being very credible and saying, hey, and this is what we're going to do to get it sold, so that you're setting those expectations. I had a seller tell me at a Bible study one day, or at a women's conference, so it was in front of a bunch of people. She said, my listing agent hasn't done a thing to get my house sold. And I said, well, who's your listing agent? And she told me who the listing agent was, and I said, that's an excellent choice for where your home is, because she knows that market really well. And she goes, well, that's why I hired her, and but she hasn't done anything for her money. And I said, I thought you just told me that you were negotiating between two offers. And she said, well, I am, but she didn't bring either one of the buyers. And that, goes to show that we're not doing a good job setting those expectations up front and saying, I'm probably not going to be the person to bring the offer. My job is to market it to other people, and to other agents to bring offers, and directly to the public. But more often than not, I'm going to be the person negotiating on your behalf. So we have to make sure that we're telling people that, because she told a room full of people that her listing agent was terrible. And this listing agent was a client of mine from years ago. So she's a great agent, and she was getting some bad PR. I had to stand up for her. And she also at the same time said, yeah, she's been trying to help me find another one. We've been seeing houses, from 8 to 5 for the past 3 days. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You just said your listing agent wasn't working for you at all. And she's been showing you houses from 8 to 5 for the past 3 days. So
sorry, I just had a brain aneurysm, died, and now I'm back. Sorry.
Well, but it comes with expectations. That's what it is. And she said, well, sure, that's what she's doing to help me find a house. Okay. Again, we got to go back to what the seller wants and expects. That's why, agents feel like they break their necks all the time for people, and that they don't get appreciation for it sometimes. This is why we have to set those expectations up front, and the only way you can do that is in a detailed plan, like what Kevin is saying, and a presentation, that they can expect step by step. However, like one of my clients came by this morning, and he said, selective seller amnesia is definitely a true syndrome.
That is true. There's a guy that's out here in San Diego that he is originally from the Midwest, and like built a team and sold it off, and now he just kind of sells on for fun essentially here in San Diego. But he said something very, very good, which was that value that is not conveyed is value that is not received. So whenever he solves whatever it is, whenever he solves a problem for a seller client, he will call them up and explain, hey, great news, just wanted to let you know, and like he'll describe the problem, and then he'll describe how he solved it and how everything is good now. But as opposed to just kind of flying under the radar and taking care of things and then not letting them know, or just kind of covering it, like summing it up in a call 2 weeks later or something like that, he makes sure that they understand, hey, I took care of this, and exactly how he took care of this, so that the value of it is received and they understand all the things that he's doing. He also makes sure that he actually shows up, for things like inspections. Like he takes a real hands-on approach, like making an effort to actually be there for certain things, specifically so that they see him there and present and actively engaged. And working. Yeah, which if you're doing 2 to 4 deals a month and it's that high-end price point, you can do that. Doesn't work necessarily if you're churning $150,000 homes. Like you can't. It doesn't extend to every market. But yeah, value that is not conveyed isn't received.
30 houses a month.
Yeah, exactly. Can't show up to 30 inspections. They'll never get anything done. But yeah, it works for him.
But, I had a conversation last week with a different home seller, and she said, I had my house on the market for a short time, and I just took it off because my real estate agent wasn't doing anything for the money. And I said, well, did you pay them up front? And she said,
That's a great
no.
question.
And I said, okay, but it's that perceived, right? It's that perception of having written that check whenever you hire someone. So you're absolutely right, Matt. If you're not showing people what you're actually accomplishing and getting done. Now, some of your sellers are going to be busy. You can send them, hey, got this done, and there are different systems that you can use out there. Brevity is one of them. You can that shows every time that you enter in, MLS or order a flyer or deliver lock boxes or do some sort of marketing blast. It will notify the seller every single time, so that that's an efficient system for you, so that you don't have to pick up the phone and remind your seller what you're doing. The system does it for you. You can also use a free system called Trello that you can log in the seller on your board, and every time you do something for that client, that seller will be notified, and it's free. Those are the kind of systems you want to incorporate into your business, because they're letting that seller know without you having to pick up the phone every time and have a lengthy conversation about what you're doing, right? So those are some systems that you can definitely put into place.
That's great.
Well, as we go on to reveal some of the stuff about the survey, and I'm going to continue to ask some questions here. What's interesting, of course, and it's not surprising, is that most people found their agents by referrals. And the second way that they found their listing agent is because they saw signs in neighborhoods. That's why farming is still working. What's really interesting about the internet for home sellers is that it was the lowest response. So
in terms of how people found their listing agent?
Yes, in terms of how people found their listing agent. It's not on the internet. You could start there, but most of the time you went to the internet to find that person because you either got a mailer or because you saw a sign in the yard or because your neighbor told you about this person. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that, because everybody is always preaching online, internet. It's not the same for home sellers. They want credibility. Am I wrong by that, Kevin? Whenever you've hired listing agents before, what have been the main ways you've reached out to people to hire them?
It's absolutely been referral. Finding out from business colleagues or friends who you used, how did they do. Every time for me, it's been about referrals. And then it also, a second way to see them, I do agree with seeing the signs in the yard. You can tell who is successful by how many signs do they have out there. So I think that just kind of reiterates the referrals, but I've always used the referral process. It's always been the way to go for me.
Well, and it brings up the importance of circle prospecting too. I mean, if once you get the one listing, man, do everything you can to make that 2 or 3, because it'll just snowball.
Yes, and of course that is our feast for life. Turning one piece of business into 3, and I've got an agent who is so good at doing this that whenever he takes one listing, he'll say, now oftentimes what I find is people put their house on the market. This is a great script for you. When they put their house on the market, it's because they've been competing with a neighbor. You may have had a conversation with someone down the street who was also thinking about moving, and you got yours in gear. Now, instead of thinking of that neighbor as a competitor, if you wouldn't mind giving me their name and number, because I can drive more traffic to your house by having more than one on the market in here. Yeah. And it works beautifully for him. So
yeah, it's a great script.
And it works. So I think a lot of times we start getting really protective over our seller and not asking those kind of questions. But it will help your client because you can drive more traffic there together. Your marketing effort is going to be a lot more substantial when you have more than one in one area.
Yeah, and I can't remember what team that does this, but there is a real estate team, and I wish I could recall who it is, but when they get an incoming call for a listing, they're automatically searching their database at the same time for nearby listings they have, and then piggybacking and attempting to book a show, like a double showing, or turn every showing on their listings into 2 or 3 showings, almost a tour of just their listings in that area. Now, obviously, this is a bigger team, but the principle is the same, always trying to domino whatever opportunity you get into 2 or 3 things.
Um, Jay, last night you made a couple of notes about what's important to you from your listing agent, and I know you started off by saying that really knowing the market, but you had a couple of other things that you felt were serious things that you expected from your listing agent. Do you want to kind of go over a couple of those?
One that always sticks out in my mind is I had an agent one time. We did hundreds of deals. When he showed up with an offer, he knew what the offer said. He knew what it was going to take to make it work out. You know, we didn't always make every one of them work out, but he knew what they were looking for, and he knew what I needed to do. Really, all we were doing was, filling in a couple of blanks and signing it at that point. I hate to have an offer sent over, and you say, "Here's offer," and the agent knows nothing about it, doesn't know their situation, hadn't reviewed it. That's just not a good way to present an offer. That's one of my main things.
Well, and home sellers don't know this, but it is the law, at least in Alabama, that agents provide a net sheet with every single offer and counter offer so that a seller can make a really good decision. And oftentimes, I know I see it a lot, and I'm having more and more sellers call me to share this with me, is that agents will just email the offer to them and not really review it. Well, if you're offended by something in the offer because the agent may not have explained it to you, or maybe they're asking for a lot of things and they're not focused on the bottom line, or it got personal somehow based on the interpretation from that email, they're going to say no. They're going to say no, and really you could have probably sat down with the person, explained it all to them, went over the bottom line numbers, and were able to make a sale for them a lot quicker. That's why we have a job, because it is personal for most people. And our job is to keep that personal part out of it and buffer it. So I know exactly what you're saying, Jay. You had a couple more, didn't you? A couple other notes that you were sharing.
Another one that you and I discussed was about the first weekend that the house is listed. I think it's important to wait till Sunday to see if you get multiple offers before replying to one on Friday night. And I feel like a good agent would advise you to wait and see if something else was coming in. Just because, it's all going to happen right there, right after you list it, right?
Unless it's a crazy good offer. This is where we're gonna differ.
That's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one. However, if it's a really good, irresistible offer because somebody wanted that property so badly, they're going to talk themselves out of it by Sunday. If it's a 3-day period and they felt like they gave their best offer out, then a lot of times buyers will talk themselves out of something before it is wrapped up. Now, I know that you are a patient person and I am not, and honey, that's why I love you.
If I know there are more showings scheduled, I'm going to wait until at least all of those have gone through before I make a decision to see if something else comes in.
I completely.
Yeah, that's something where the listing agent has to really work with you and understand your temperament and set the expectations, because if you're working with a top agent, they're super high D, high driving. They're just as impatient as Genny is. They're probably going to advise you your first offer is probably your best offer. In fact, I've heard Dan Hamilton in South Carolina utter those exact words. Your first offer is almost always your best offer. So it takes you just have to work with someone that knows your temperament.
Well, I actually said those words last night.
Did you really?
Yes. Because
That's awesome.
It is true, and I'll tell you why. Because buyers always want the fresh stuff. They want what nobody else has seen and rejected. So after it's been on the market a week or 2 weeks, and buyers know right away. In fact, one of our complaints on our survey is that listing agent in only 2 weeks started telling me I needed to reduce my house. Well, in 2 weeks, you have to, because they've got technology. They have on their iPhones, they know the market, they know what's coming on, they know price reductions, they know every single neighborhood. They're stalking where they want to live. So whenever 2 weeks has passed, your house is stale. It is stale. So that's, I understand it was a complaint from the seller, but that was an expectation issue. The agent should have gotten those price reductions ahead of time. Just, if they felt like they were listing a little bit high, hey, in 2 weeks, we better be coming down or you're going to be sitting on the market a long time.
Well, that goes back to an agent having a plan before it's listed, right?
That's right. Expectations. Now, one of the things that, I always try to advise everybody to do is if you price it right, you're going to start a bidding war anyway. Because if you go in, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example of this. I had one of my clients, he didn't even want to take a listing in a very sought-after neighborhood, and it's called Indian Springs, and it's outside of Birmingham, and he said, nobody would want to live over there. And I said, lots of people want to live there. Take that listing. And I helped him put a price together, and I said, here's an irresistible sweet spot right here. Put it on there. He had, 4 or 5 offers the very first day, and it went up $25,000 cash over the asking price. And those people were happy to get it. They felt like they won something, and I mean, look at what the seller did. If they would have started at that high of a price, they would have sat on the market a lot longer. So, and I understand this all comes with, and sorry I have to talk with my hands, but this all comes from having a strategy and having a plan. But a lot of times, your whole goal should be starting a bidding war for your client, no matter what. I don't know, do you agree with that, Kevin?
Oh, I do, and like I said, I just think it comes back to knowing the market, knowing what things are selling for, price per square foot. Because I've also heard of a very successful agent actually in that market, in that Indian Springs market. They priced a home and it sold the very first day, but yet they thought, hey, you know what? I didn't price that high enough because they just felt like, good grief, the demand was there, and
and sometimes sellers will think that too. So that comes back from that expectation piece. You know what, I'm going to price it so right, and we're going to do it just a little bit under so that we can get a bidding war and go up. But I don't want you to feel like if we sell it the first week that you've left any money on the table. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because often if you are pricing something because you're scared, you have a fear factor, scarcity factor of leaving money on the table, then it will sit for a long time. And in that neighborhood, you'll see they either go like that or they sit for, a year. It's crazy. So Kevin, you had, some experiences where you've kind of had to let some high-profile agents go. Do you want to, or can you please share with us a little bit that, made you feel so strongly in maybe hiring a different agent, letting that agent go?
Yeah, it just went back with the normal things of not being honest and with me. One of the top agents, they were sitting at the new house that came on the market right down the road. I was trying to sell. Hey, I've seen that house. I don't agree with their square footage. Size of that home, and so they literally took my footage of my house and they marked through it up square footage by 1,000 square feet on the spot. I couldn't believe that they did that. And so that was me. Right, wrong. This agent is also, but I just couldn't believe the stroke of a pen they made. square foot larger. So not being honest, and that's that same agent. I fired that agent about 2 weeks later. And they didn't have the two places, they were selling the home correctly. I ended up selling the home. That agent's clients. So they had the and the buyer. But just that was a bad experience. And you're not honest. It always comes back. To bite.
Yes, it does. And I mean, it only went up a few feet. 1,000. Yeah, I was telling you the story about looking at comps and saw your house and said, how did it grow 1,000 feet in a short amount of time? So, that's, to me, that is so funny. Okay, so some of our survey questions that have, come back and want to respond. We had a question about signs and agent faces on signs. And before I kind of give you what overall survey says, Kevin, how do you feel about for sale signs in your yard with agents' faces on them?
I don't like it. Feel like I understand promote themselves. Yeah. There's a way to do that. I think when you're representing home, the home needs to go. Yeah, just the sign needs to be the contact information and information. Just things that you should try to take away from that homeowner's property.
Well, and Jay, I know you've got an opinion about this too.
I couldn't hear most of what he said. I do not like it either. I feel like it's just them promoting themselves, and that's not why I'm trying to sell my house.
I was actually very surprised to find out that most sellers do not appreciate this. And the only reason I guess I'm surprised about it is I didn't think that most people would mind or even care or even thought about it. But I shared the other day that I watched a news feed on Facebook. Somebody took a snapshot of a sorry, they're doing landscaping here. Somebody took a snapshot of a for sale sign that had a guy's face on it and put it on Facebook, and these people were angry coming out of the woodwork, and they were saying egotistical, overvaluing themselves, self-important. I mean, all of these things that I know agents are really good people. They would not want other people to be thinking these things about them. So that was one of the reasons I put this in the survey. And I'll have to say that, I think 40% of people who answered the survey said they did not like it at all. So I think that is highly important for you on your marketing plan as you're thinking about, doing the best to provide for your seller, because it's about that property and that property's presentation and not necessarily about your promotion. I think directional signs would be fine. That you could put, your faces on directional signs if you, felt like you needed to get some recognition that way and some branding. But I think that you have a large audience out there that is not appreciative of the face on the signs. And I've shared before that years ago I had my photo, it was a black and white photo on the sign, and I just couldn't sleep at night thinking that people were throwing darts at it or, drawing little horns on it. And I know one of our agents got a new mustache one time, and he just laughed. He thought that was so funny. But
that's interesting. I haven't heard that come up very often.
Yeah, well, and the reason I thought about it is because of that Facebook feed. So I really wanted to find out, and it's a topic for sure that one of those things that you don't expect people to be concerned about, and they are. So, I want to make sure that agents are providing real value, and that's a piece of it for sure. Let's see. Very interesting, too, when I said, did you interview more than one agent? On the survey itself, it said that let's see, it was almost half and half. 40% said yes, and 47% said yes, and 52% said no. We often are told that home sellers go with the first person they talk to. That's not true. We're seeing it right there that people are reaching out. They are looking for credibility. Some of the stories, again, that I've gotten lately, and again, that I'm surprised about, people aren't caring if the agent cares about them or not. A lot of people will say that's part of my plan. I really care about the people I work with and care for them. A lot of them are like, we don't care if you care about us. It's business, and we just want you to tell us exactly how it's going to be, and we want you to get it sold right away. You don't have to be our friend, and you don't have to care about us. I'm hearing that more and more and more from consumers, and I'm kind of shocked by that. Somebody just ran behind you, Kevin. So what about, does that surprise you that more people are interviewing agents, Kevin?
I think they should. More agents, really. I really think that they should look at, at a minimum 2, just to compare their plans, to compare their marketing ideas, to see about their communication skills. So it kind of surprises me that more people don't interview at least 2. But again, I guess that's the power of referral. If you're getting a referral from another person that you trust, if you do a good job on your presentation, and maybe they feel like there's no need. But it does surprise me a little bit that people aren't interviewing more than one agent.
Yeah, because in the past has been, I think, what's the stat? Like 80% typically usually go with the first agent they list with the first agent that they meet with. I think that's the stat. Is that right, Jenny? Usually it's 80%. I don't think she realizes that she's muted. Can you unmute? Yeah, I don't. So it's all coming back. For anybody that's watching, all of our audio is kind of coming back in from Jenny's laptop, so she has to try to mute herself whenever somebody else is talking. So.
Yeah, my husband wishes he could use that later. The mute button. What surprises me is that people are taking the time, because I think a home seller, what they really want, and the reason that they don't interview more than one, is they want to be wowed by that first person because they don't have to think about it. Moving is so stressful, and putting the house on the market and getting to that point is so stressful. They want you to be the hero. They want you to come in and win them over so they don't have to make that second phone call. So I'm actually surprised at the people spending the time, because time is such a precious resource these days, interviewing an extra person.
Well, and that goes to show you that it's how underwhelming their first appointment probably is.
Yeah, if they're seeking more than one. We did have a client the other day that went, that was being interviewed, and they had interviewed by referral 4 other agents. That's huge. Yeah, that's stressful too, to have to listen to that.
Yeah, that's a lot for the average person to meet with.
I know. What also is surprising, I asked the question, how well did your agent perform on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 exceeding your expectations? And most agents got really high scores. 60% of people who answered that question said they exceeded their expectations. So I'm very happy about that, for sure. And I asked the question, what did your agent do the best? And there actually is a tie here. Market and communicate were tied, and again, I'm very surprised about the communication. So that's really good. Negotiate got low marks.
Really?
Yes. So agents, if you want to stand out, then you can actually put in your presentation and your plan up front about how you negotiate and what your plan is for negotiation. Jay, what have you seen mostly on negotiation when you have worked with lots of different listing agents?
Sometimes they like to show their value and get in the way of letting a deal happen. You know, all of a sudden they feel like they're in charge, and where they may have disappeared a month earlier, now they're back in the middle of it and have the opportunity to, I guess, to be the hero and actually cause more problems than they solve.
Now, is that because they're getting involved with maybe some of the terms and some of the more things that maybe should be left to you as the builder to determine whether you're willing to compromise? Like, how are they jumping in the middle of it and trying to show value and kind of screwing things up?
Just yeah, trying to show their worth. I don't.
Interesting.
Well, I'll give you an example. Some of the things that you've told me before, Jay, are, you know, especially on new construction, they'd like to point out problems, or, hey, you missed all of these, you know, in the walkthrough, you missed these paint splotches that need to be, you know, fixed. They feel the need because a lot of times new construction is really easy to sell. The other agents kind of help you and do it, and the builder does the rest. And so he has said that has happened a lot of times. They feel like they need to get in the middle of it just to kind of show that they've done something, right?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, here's a response from someone that said their listing agent, all they did was collect a check and added absolutely no value to the process whatsoever. That hurts. That's exactly what you want to avoid. Okay, so more and more for sale by owner signs have been popping up. Last week on a Zillow search, there were 5 new properties for sale, and I believe like 4 of them were for sale by owners. I know that there's a lot of information on the internet about selling your house, but Kevin, you know, how do you feel about for sale by owners?
I don't like it. I don't think the owner has the expertise of understanding the price per square foot. I just think that that it's awkward too for a for sale by owner to show their home, because I don't think that the potential buyer will give the honest feedback to them that they would give a real estate agent. So I've never done a for sale by owner of all my properties that I've done. I've always hired a real estate agent to do that because I'm relying on their expertise, their negotiation skills, their plan, their marketing, all that. So I just don't like it. And I know there's a lot of tools out there that might equip a for sale by owner person a little bit better today than in the past. But I still think a lot of folks try to do that to just save that commission. But a lot of times I don't think that they'll price their home correctly. So they leave money on the table a lot of times, in my opinion. So I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that it's as a for sale by owner, part of the reason that you want to go on the market that way is usually because you have a different expectation of your pricing than the agent does. I mean, Jenny, I'm sure you teach your clients to combat that all the time. You're always trying to reset their expectations.
Well, absolutely. But I do feel like sometimes people just don't want. They feel like they can do it themselves. I mean, we are in the world of Craigslist and eBay, and so I think it's perfectly reasonable for people to feel like they can do it themselves. I had somebody messaged me on Facebook this morning, and he said he's getting ready to sell his property, and also told me of another person, a family member, that was going to sell their property. And Kevin, it's in your neighborhood. And he wanted me to come over and do a consultation because he didn't want to have to work with an agent and just tell him what needed to be done to get everything ready. And I understand wanting to save, but sometimes they're not wanting that middleman in the way. And Kevin, I couldn't agree with you more, especially in the South. We are all nice people. We are never going to tell you that your house smells like a cat if we are considering buying your house. We're not going to give you honest feedback. It's not that we would ever consider ourselves liars. It's just that we would consider it really rude. So you're not going to get the real feedback that you need. At the same time, feedback from an agent is not always good either, because they might show 8 or 9 houses in a day. They forget yours, so they make up stuff. And I've seen it happen over and over where they go, oh yeah, it just didn't work out for them. The floor plan was all wrong, because they couldn't remember which house they went to. So that is very, very common. What I'll suggest is getting feedback straight from the person while they're in the house. And we like to use feedback forms inside houses so that a buyer can fill it out right there on the spot and leave it for the seller to see immediately. That's also an excellent, efficient system so that the agent doesn't have to be, browbeating another agent to answer the phone and to give them feedback. So an excellent tool if you want to incorporate that into your systems as well. Jay, how do you feel about for sale by owner?
I think it's silly. You can hire professionals. So many pitfalls. The chances of somebody showing up at your door, buying your house, and it getting the closing are so slim that why waste your time? Hire a professional. You're gonna end up making more money anyway.
Okay. I had to unmute myself to be able to talk. Well, and I got the question the other day on, whenever you sell your house, how are you going to do it? We have always paid full commissions. When we bought our house from a for sale by owner, and I made them pay me a commission. We believe in what we do for a reason, and every time we list property, we pay a commission. Every time we buy property, we pay a commission, whether it's to ourselves or to another agent. We value the expertise, and we've bought hundreds of homes throughout the years. So I understand a for sale by owner, and I know we only have a few more minutes, but I just wanted to share a situation the other day where everybody does think it's easy, so they might think that this is the way to go. And I don't want to attack somebody's reasoning or thinking about this decision. I just want to show and educate. A man got completely frustrated because he was buying a for sale by owner, and he was actually the client of the listing agent had sold their house. So he told his listing agent and said, can you help me out and close this thing, because nobody knows what they're doing on this for sale by owner situation. And he said, yeah, for this amount of fee, I'll get in and step in and do it. And he said, what does the contract say? And he said, well, we don't have a contract. And he said, you don't have anything in writing? And he said, no. And he said, okay, well, and he goes, I just gave him $5,000 and we just said we had a deal. So we discovered he wrote the seller directly a $5,000 check, which would normally go into an escrow account of an attorney or a broker. So this is scary, and with nothing in writing. Nothing in writing. So you think highly educated people wouldn't get themselves into a situation, and it happens every day. So luckily they asked for help. So when he got that $5,000 right back, put it in an attorney's escrow account, and worked out all the details and got it in writing and closed it out. But it's not that simple. There are more pieces and parts that you definitely need to consider. I could share lots more stories and consumer frustrations with you today, but we're pretty much out of time.
That's right.
Right, Matt?
Now, there's a, yeah, we are running out of time. I don't see that we have any questions from the Google Plus page, so make sure, guys, the next time around, you put them as a comment on the Google Plus page, or use the Q&A app, either way. And then, Jenny, you have basically a home marketing certification that people need to know about. It's a great way to present yourself as different in the listing presentation.
Yes, we for 2 years have been developing a new designation with fresh, innovative material on, not only new ways to market your properties for extra exposure, but how to be a certified home marketing expert and being a better listing agent. We're taking this information from finding out what sellers really want, and we're building this whole 9 hours that is a certified education as well, so that we'll give you 9 hours of CE and giving you a designation called the Certified Home Marketing Expert, so that you can go and say, hey, I got a graduate degree. I'm now an expert on marketing your house. You can look that up at certifiedhomemarketingexpert.com. Our first time that we are teaching it and making it available is on May 11th. So check that out and definitely join us. So Kevin, Jay, thank you so much for being here. Definitely appreciate your expertise and your input, and you're going to help thousands of people throughout the next year or two whenever they catch this on YouTube. So thank you guys for being here. Matt, as always, thank you, and I will see you on the next second Monday of next month.
That's right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Thanks.